Good evening and welcome to tonight's show. I am your host, Tina Dawson, the owner of True Blue Designs, and it is truly an honor to be before you this evening. Before we get started and I introduce tonight's guest, I want to send my prayers and thoughts to the family members, the police officers, and everyone in the city of San Jose, California. As some of you know, this morning there was a mass shooting. And I just want to encourage everybody to keep them in your prayers. Now, for those of us that have children in high school and college, a key person that aids in their education, our children's educational success, is their academic advisor. And today's guest will give us insight on effective tips or tips and characteristics of an effective academic advisor, and also how our children can foster their relationship with their advisors. So without further ado, help me give a warm welcome to tonight's guest, Mr. Anthony Buchanan.
What is going on?
Hello. How are you?
I'm blessed. Happy to be here. Glad that I get to participate this evening. So I appreciate the reaching out and being the guest here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you. I have been serving you and several chapters that you have been a part of for some years now. So I just want to say thank you so much for being a great client.
Oh, definitely.
And allowing me to work with you on different projects. I really appreciate it.
And maybe someday we can finally get a chance to meet in person.
I know. You know, my son was stationed in Fort Wainwright in Alaska. And in order for him to get to the States, guess where he had to stop at? Seattle, Washington.
Oh, yeah.
So every time he tells me I'm in Washington, I think about you. But, you know, it's late at night or early in the morning when he's coming through. So I can't call.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So maybe one day we'll meet. And see, now it's a pandemic, so we can't even meet in Myrtle Beach.
No, unfortunately not. So
hopefully in 2022. All right. Well, if you don't mind, we're gonna start by letting you tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. So about me, born and raised in Seattle, Washington. K through 12, right here in the city. Then I left, went to junior college in Arizona to play football. Then eventually went from there to Wingate University in North Carolina. Continued my career there, got my undergrad degree at Wingate University. And then eventually, while I was there, and this is where I kind of learned about the things about education when you're transferring schools, and you learn about not how all your credits will transfer with you. My eligibility ran up a year early before I had to graduate, so I looked at the opportunity of being a student coach, and so I did that at Wingate, going in from my junior to senior year. And then, while I was working on my degree, and so I got my degree in liberal studies and minor in criminal justice. And during that time, I was being recruited from the state of California for highway patrol. And so, and that was, and so I graduated in December 2000. And so, so I kind of worked off to the side while in Carolina, and then did commencement. Moved to San Diego with my wife and the family. And then while we were there, that's when 9/11 happened.
Okay.
And so living in San Diego, and while you're trying to get on the highway patrol, San Diego is a very heavily military city. Mm-hmm. There are 6 naval bases. There are 2 Marine Corps bases. But it's also, it's very, very fortified. So when 9/11 happened, everyone and their mother wanted to become law enforcement, from like an air marshal to highway patrol to sheriff to whatever. And so I passed a written exam, not a problem. The problem was you got to the physical, you had to see 20/40 uncorrected without glasses or contacts. So I remember at my physical, after passing the running test, after passing a polygraph, I remember taking off my glasses, trying to read the eye chart. I was like, I think that's an E. It's that he's like, I think you're done. I mean, you can get LASIK, and which I did. The only problem was when you get LASIK in the state of California, they make you go back through the process because you have to wait a year to make sure the LASIK sticks. So all this training that I did for undergrad, I didn't have a plan B. And so the plan B was, well, let me explore coaching as a possible opportunity. And so, but I knew I couldn't do it living in California because the cost of living back in the early 2000s for San Diego, I mean, to purchase a house back then, the minimum house was like around $750,000, just within San Diego. So I told my wife, I was like, we can't live here. There's no way we're going to survive. Because we were, newly married. We had already had a couple of kids. And so plan B, going to coaching. So we left San Diego in 2003. And we met in Arizona when I was going to junior college. And so we moved to Arizona. I took a job at Scottsdale Community College in Arizona. And I worked there while also working at the University of Phoenix online, doing the admissions process. And it was there in Arizona is where I realized my love for working with young men, working with athletes, preparing for like academic to weight training to all that, pretty much everything to kind of get them into college. So that's when my career for coaching and my love for coaching really kind of took off.
Okay. So, so what were you a specialized coach? You know how sometimes they have the wide receiver coach, or were you the head coach? Or?
Yeah. So I was the tight ends and strength and conditioning coach.
Okay.
So I was the only one on the staff that had actually worked at a 4-year. Everyone else had either worked at a 2-year or high school. And so they trusted the reins of the strength and conditioning program in my hands. So that's something I really had to take really seriously. So, so I did that, for the 2 years. And while I was there, my old head coach that I played for, he eventually left, went to a school in Tennessee at Tennessee Tech. And I was looking I wanted to keep going in coaching. And so he called me up and says, hey, I have an opportunity here at Tennessee Tech for you to coach tight ends. And in return, we'll pay for grad school. We'll pay for your housing. Everything's included. You even get a stipend on top of it. I was like, I'm there. I'm like, I'm ready. Let's go. No questions asked. And so I left. So now the thing about coaching college is the windows of opportunity open and shut real fast. So I said, okay, so this was in July. It's about towards the end of July. He told me that that I'll hire you. I said, okay, we're gonna have to be here. You have to be here in 5 days. I'm like, oh, okay. So I really couldn't move the family that fast enough because they're all during that time they were in year-round school in Arizona. So and they were on track. So I packed up my car, packed up everything that I could, hopped it in the trunk, got on the 40, drove to Tennessee, got there, got established, and then during the bye week came back for the family, had the moving trucks there, moved everything from there to Central Tennessee, and then got to Tennessee Tech and was coaching tight ends and working on grad school. And I was there for 2 years, got my master's in education administration. And then I was looking from that time frame, I actually could have got done with school around Christmas time of 2005, but I didn't want to be looking for a job either during that time frame. So I decided to kind of extend school, just kind of drag it a little bit
Mm-hmm.
into the spring. And I'm glad I did because it worked out because I had three different offers. I could have stayed at Tennessee Tech. I had an offer from Tennessee State in
Mm-hmm.
Nashville, and then I had the offer from John C. Smith University in Charlotte, North
Oh,
Carolina.
wow. Okay.
And so I took the offer at John C. Smith because it was a better deal, full time. I was doing football and track, coaching D line. I was in charge of operations for
Mm-hmm.
football, and what that means is you're in charge of like travel. You're the pro scout liaison to the NFL, to the
Wow.
CFL, arena guys, and I'm also in charge of the weight room. So I was able to spend 3 good solid years at John Smith University. It was also my first HBCU coaching at, and I look back to when there was an opportunity for me to go play at either Tuskegee or Alabama State. The only problem was I wanted to see what the schools looked like, but
Right.
back then in the late '90s, no one had a budget, to fly you out.
Mm-hmm.
And if
Mm-hmm.
say if you want to come see campus, see on your own, I'm like, I don't make money like that, so I'm gonna go to Wingate and take it. But um, I was glad that I had the opportunity to go coach at HBCU because I got to see the value behind HBCUs, and um, most universities. It really depends. I mean, all universities are great, but some universities you have those professors who care, and that's
Mm-hmm.
what I saw at John Smith, and that's like at Wingate as well. But at least at Smith, if they know what your value is, they're not just going to slide you by with a D or an F, or I mean, they'll fail you, but they'll make you retake the class.
Right.
So if it takes you 5 or 6 years, to get out, then that's what it is. But um, great relationships that were fostered there, and then eventually took a job up in Virginia at Southern Virginia University. Is a private faith-based university, and they were just getting football started. So I thought, what great opportunity to go, start up a new
Yeah.
program in a new state. Um, so we were there for 4 years, but during that time frame between North Carolina and Virginia, what brought me back to Seattle was my dad. So all my life, my dad had always been sick. He'd been in and out of hospitals, all through his life from like age 5 on through until he passed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was doing a lot more coming back to Seattle than I was being in the office between Carolina and Virginia. And so it was after the 2012 season I really had to come to the hard reality decision: do I keep going with this, or do I just give up my career in coaching so I can come home, do the right thing? Because I'm the oldest.
Okay.
So I forward my career as college coach, moved home to help take care of dad, and the crazy part was, like, within 3 days after we got here in 2013, his health declined and he duked it out in the ICU. Eventually
Mm-hmm.
passed 3 months later, and so
I'm
while
sorry
I
to
was
hear that.
here, yeah, it was tough. It was really it was a challenge. So, um, but while I was here, coaching college, once you get across the Mississippi River,
Mm-hmm.
the coach opportunities are kind of far and few between. And
Okay.
so so then I had to come with a new plan B.
Right.
And so the new plan B was to work as an academic advisor, who I work for today
Mm-hmm.
is WGU, which is Western Governors University.
Okay. And let's talk a little bit about being a coach, because
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to someone last week, and he's a high school coach. And I was telling him that I end up realizing that, when you put your children in sports, it's not really about, quote unquote, the sport. It's about the life lessons that they learn while playing the sport. The sport is actually the tool that is used to teach them the life lessons. And let's
Mm-hmm.
talk a little bit about that, because sometimes the kids, or sometimes the parents, push it, put everything on that sport, and them being drafted, and them this and that with the sport. But like you said in your story, even you had to have a plan B, because you just never know what's going to happen with the sport. So let's talk a little bit about that, it's about the life lessons that you're able to teach the children as a coach.
Yeah. So when I did the college, that's where you get to really see someone actually grow and mature. A lot of kids will hit their head within that first year, one or two, and because they're trying to figure life out. For the most of the time, some kids got it good, some don't.
Yeah.
And for the ones that don't, are usually the one that will usually 9 times out of 10 will work hard for it because they know there's nothing for them at home to go back to. So
Right.
they really have to apply themselves in order to have success, in order to move on. Now now I have come across some of the student athletes I got to work with that still came from nothing, but got to college and thought it was a party time. So and they hardly went to class, and for me, I was more invested in them, than they were, because they really couldn't see the bigger picture until later, and that's something they don't see until they get to be about junior, senior, or by the time you get out of college, and now you got the weight of the world on your shoulders.
Right.
But what I taught the kids in college was life. Life is kind of like football. It's kind of like it's a team sport. It's a game of life. I teaching the game of X and O's is one thing, but also I have to teach you about life in general, on how to be a man. How are you going to be a person? How will you be perceived to the next person? Because anyone you walk past in life, you're always going to be scrutinized. You're going to be criticized. Someone's going to look at you and think something, whether it's positive or negative about you, just depends on how you carry yourself.
Right.
So
right, that's true.
There was a lot of and working at the different universities, from the different parallels from Arizona to Tennessee to the Carolinas, even though the kids are coming from different states, and the accent, depends on where you're from, kicks in. But most young men between the age of 18 and 22 all think the same, have the same deal. So it's something I enjoy working with, and there was those challenging young men that I worked with, and and even though they hated me back then, years later, they say, Coach, I was wrong back then. I was like, I know you were. I feel you. I got you. I was like, I'm not disagreeing, but I'm glad you addressed it now,
right?
And saw who you thought you were going to be on who you are today. So, so it's always good to see those guys grow up. And for the ones who, that talk about, for the ones who go in high school that are, want to be recruited by the big colleges, and they don't get recruited by the big college, they get recruited by the small mid majors or a small college. I tell kids all the time that you're still going to be looked at. The NFL for the most part does a pretty good job. They recruit, they turn over every stone at every level, from the D1A, D1AA, D2, D3, NIA to down even to junior college. And they really do a pretty good job. And so a lot of kids will say, well, Coach, how come that scout didn't call me? It's like, well, like a scout told me, if you don't if you don't surprise me within the first 1 or 2 plays, you ain't the guy.
Oh, wow.
So it's and that's why people say NFL stands for not for long. It's a real small window to get into with the league, and fortunately I was able to be on teams where we had kids who went to NFL, or if they couldn't get in the NFL, I said, well, don't look at it as a bad thing. Canadian Football League is great. You have the arena ball.
Mm-hmm.
You have different opportunities, and you have some of these other leagues overseas that are like smaller, like in Italy, Europe. That's not on a major scale, but if you ever want the opportunity to go do it, try it. So
Right. Right. Yeah. The NFL is not the only option.
correct.
Yeah. Yeah. We had brother Travis Sally on. He was talking about the food truck industry, and he told his story. And he actually played arena ball.
Okay.
Yeah, he was in the Navy, but part of his journey is he played arena ball and really enjoyed it. So yeah, I think sometimes we just, we as parents sometimes have our kids focusing on just one lane of success,
Mm-hmm.
and not understanding that, I have this thing that I tell my kids is that there's 26 letters in the alphabet, right? And each
Mm-hmm.
letter represents an option, right? So you have 26 options before you get to me.
Right. Right.
So figure it out.
Right.
But some people, in sports, they think if I don't get a scholarship, or if I don't get, a basketball scholarship, then I'm done. Or, and there's so many stories about people who walk on,
Mm-hmm.
so many stories.
Yeah, there are. I mean, and that's also when I tell the kids, even for the ones that I recruited, I remind them, at the end of the day, you're a student athlete. You're a student first, and you're an athlete
Yeah.
second.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you can't take care of the grades on the field, what makes you think I'm gonna put you in the game because you don't know what the heck you're doing? You're gonna
Right.
get someone hurt. You might get yourself hurt, like
Mm-hmm.
severely. And so, and even once the opportunity goes, I mean, it's quick. I mean, it
Yeah.
goes even faster in college
Yeah.
because you only get 4 years to play it.
Right.
Unless you get a special circumstance, you redshirt, and then you have different formalities come in play. But at the end of the day, you get to play your sport, and then on top of that, you pretty much graduate, get a degree,
Mm-hmm.
and pretty much the decisions in your hand from there. Do you go to grad school? Do you go get a doctoral degree? I mean, you
Right.
really the options are endless.
Right. Yeah. And I was going to say too, the talent pool is so saturated too.
It is.
Right. Because, yeah, I mean, it's the competition is
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
high. And, I can understand you saying not for long. And you're talking about the window is short, because, like I said, it's just so much talent out there. What makes you different or better than the other person? Why should they choose you?
Right.
And so you have to have a good coach that works on your game and it helps you understand. But again, there's 26 letters in the alphabet.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Don't get stuck on A.
Amen. Amen.
So how we actually met is, you're a member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. So let's talk a little bit about that. So what interested you to become a member of this wonderful organization?
So when I was at Wingate, actually no, I'll take it back. Before I even got to Wingate, when I was in junior college, being a bigger guy, I used to, bounce to the nightclubs, do different parties. And a friend of mine asked me to go bounce a Greek event. They were having I want to say it was the Alphas at Arizona State. We're
Mm-hmm.
doing a Greek event at the YMCA gymnasium, and they needed security at the door. And so I said, the who? I said, the Alphas? What the heck is the Alpha? He's like, the Alpha? I'm like, no, I don't know. I was like, I never heard of Greek life before. And I never knew. It was like, yeah, they're going to do a party with the AK. I like, the who? And I'm like, I'm lost. So someone's got to educate me. So I don't have a clue what you're talking about. So that was my introduction in the Greek life. And all the organizations within Divine Nine are definitely great. It turned my advisor in junior college. He was IOTA,
Okay.
and he was real good. He protected me. He looked out for me. while I was in Arizona as a junior college student athlete. And I haven't talked to him many years, but but he was solid. But and so when I got to Wingate University, there was no Divine Nine presence on campus whatsoever. There
Okay.
were other fraternities,
Mm-hmm.
but nothing that I will hang my hat on at the end of the day that I want to be a part of.
Right.
And so I had gone out and I was trying to do my own research while being a student athlete there and seeing, what orgs were allowed to come to campus. So, it was working with student life, working with student affairs, the Office of Greek and Sorority Life. And they agreed to let Phi Beta Sigma come to campus for an informational.
Okay.
And so we had an informational. It was my senior year, and I was getting ready to graduate. And so the informational came and went, but nothing ever got started at my alma mater until after I left.
Okay.
And so I missed that opportunity. So, obviously getting my career off the ground after graduating college in California, I didn't really think of it at the time. Then I got to Arizona, and obviously my career changing from, truly going into coaching. So by the time I got to Tennessee Tech, the running back coach, was a Sigma. And so I was like, hey, I'm really interested in doing Sigma. Where's the nearest chapter? I said, well, now the issue with Tennessee Tech is that it's halfway between Nashville and Knoxville.
Mm-hmm.
It's about 90 miles east of Nashville, and it's about 110 miles west of Knoxville, in which there were chapters. I was like, oh heck no! I was like, there's no way I'm about to drive 90 miles or 110 miles to join an organization. I was like, I'll wait. I was like, if it's meant to be, I'll wait. And so when I got to Charlotte, John C. Smith, once I got hired, once I got established, that's when I got to see Black Greek life at its finest, because I really didn't know that's where you really get to see at Standpoint. So my head coach, I say, hey, Coach Mack is like, who can I talk to about Sigma? I said, why are you talking to me? I'm a Kappa. I'm like, oop. I said, okay, sorry, my apologies. And so I go to the O-line coach, and it's my first time meeting him, and I open this door and I see the Omega brand on the wall. I was like, I was going to ask you a question, but I'm not going to ask it. I'll keep walking. And so I get to the assistant basketball coach's office. I was like, hey, Jordan, I was like, who do I talk about Sigma? He's like, well, I'm a Sigma, but I'm going through some things right now, but I'm going to tell you, go talk to. And so he put me in touch with one of the professors on campus. His name is Dr. Robert Lindsay. He's a current professor there still at Johnson Smith. And so I go see him, and I kind of tell him about my interest in Sigma. And so, I get to meet him. I get to meet some of the brothers from Beta Rho Sigma in Charlotte, the alumni chapter. I just really, it's there where I got to see the true work of Sigma, at its finest. I love as a fraternity how we're about that life when it comes to service, from the March of Dimes to Relay for Life, pretty much the whole brotherhood aspect. And the part that really got me was the education part. So,
Right.
and that's what I was more passionate about. So, just to know that we're all about brotherhood, scholarship, and service, and scholarship for me stood out for me.
Right.
And so while I was there at Johnson Smith, going into our third year, there was a change in the guard at the administration with the president. And so we had a new president, and that's where I got to learn about HBCUs as far as the politics when it came to politics. So I learned that our head coach and the old president had a great relationship, but the AD did not like our head coach.
Okay.
And so we had a new president come in, and the new president, he's all about order. So obviously the head coach and the AD don't get along, and no matter what kind of season you have, Pretty much it's, when people say, well, you coach college football, you have a pretty good contract. I'm like, not really. I was like, it's not guaranteed. So I don't have a 3 or 4 or 5 year contract. My contract is year to year
Right.
or season to season. So, so we were cut loose after the 3rd season. But during that time frame, all that work I was putting into Sigma, I was saving my money. I was ready to go make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we got cut loose, I was so distraught. I was so sad. I was like, is this ever going to happen? I was like, and so it was, Brother Lindsay, he, told me not to worry about it. And, some of the brothers in that chapter, in the alumni chapter in Charlotte, said, look, it's going to happen. Just keep the faith. We've been here for, we're approaching our 100 years, so I wouldn't worry about it. Just stay the course. So,
Mm-hmm.
So I moved to Virginia, and now I'm at a school at a faith-based university. Greek life is really not happening. So, but I still stay in touch with Brother Dr. Lindsay, but I'm now in a different state. So once I get to Seattle, go through things with my dad, I said, okay, it's now time to make this happen. It's either make or break.
Right.
And so I was grateful enough to cross October of 2015, myself and my 2 other line brothers, and ever since I've been in, it's the work has not slowed down. It's definitely picked up speed. So, but it's been a wonderful journey. I love it. I just wish I had the opportunity back in undergrad to do it, but things weren't meant to be back then. So,
Right.
but now that, being active in our alumni chapter here in Tacoma, we're like a brand new chapter,
Mm-hmm.
chartered May 6th of 2019. We're doing big things here in the region, and I'm happy for it. And, but yeah, so that's my story in Sigma.
Okay. Well, I know you've had you won numerous awards you're in the Western region, and you've served on a lot of different um, projects and a lot of different what's the word? I went brain freeze.
What committees?
Yes, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of different committees, and you won a lot of different awards on the regional level and the state. And so I just want to commend you for perseverance.
Oh yeah,
Because you held on until you got what you wanted. And
oh yeah.
I'm glad that we were able to meet. And like you said, and maybe one day we'll be able to meet in person.
Someday, hopefully, we're getting close. Getting
Yeah,
close.
we'll
I
get
feel it.
close.
I feel it. So.
Yeah. So now let's talk about you as being an academic advisor. Can you tell us some activities that you perform in that role?
So currently for WGU, so WGU, Western Governors University, this is a online based university, kind of like University of Phoenix online. This is we're considered like kind of like an Ivy League of online universities because we've been in it for so long.
Okay.
The school got started back in 1993 by 19 U.S. governors, and it was at that point where they wanted, adults who had to stop going to school for whatever reason to have an option to go back to school. And the interesting part is I heard about WGU when I was coaching at the school in Virginia. My AD at the time was going through grad school with WGU. I said, oh, okay, sound like a pretty interesting school. I'd never heard of it before, but he liked it. So, but it's a competency-based university. So it's not based off of credit hours. It's pretty much by what they call competency hours.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much like an example, if you were to take a project management class and say the class lasts roughly 5 or 6 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
but you have somewhat of a clarity about the class, you may be able to test out the class, instead of sitting the whole 5 or 6 weeks for it, like you do like in the undergrad setting where they make you take it for the semester. You really
Mm-hmm.
know it. it'd be real nice to get this done, but I gotta stay here until springtime to get
Right.
out of this class and move on. So it's not that case with us. So if you know the class, test out and move on. So I work with working adults who, whether they could be single, married, kids, no kids. I think the youngest student I've ever had is 22. The oldest student I've ever had was like 65. Um, but these are adults who are trying to make a name for themselves and better themselves. And so I work with the undergraduate college of business, in the accounting program currently. But when I first started, we used to cover a variety of majors in the college of business, from like marketing to IT, um, to business management to HR and accounting. But now, because of the great relationship that I have with students with accounting, I guess I'm able to relate to them a lot better than most. That's the program that I work with, was within accounting.
Okay. So, what are some of the things that you do to ensure that students achieve their goals?
Um, it's interesting because a lot of students, even though they're adults, um, some act like adults, some don't. So you really have to kind of chase behind them sometimes, as if they were 18, 20-year-olds, even though these are adults we're talking about.
Right.
But try to remember that this is completely online, because they don't go to they don't attend class in person whatsoever. This
Okay.
is strictly 24/7, 365 online. So
Hmm.
I will never meet my student until they graduate, and the majority of my students are right here in the state of Washington. So
Okay.
whenever we do, whenever we're allowed to do the next commencement, and if they choose to go to that commencement, because they don't have to, that'll be the only time I get to meet, my actual student,
Hmm.
and then they get to meet their family. But it's pretty much kind of a set, schedule, talk to them, either once or twice a week. It really also kind of depends on their situation. Some students are on the ball, getting it done, be
Hmm.
out of school within 2 to 3 years, instead of the traditional 4. And for some, I have to usually call them up or send an email every 3 or 4 days, just to make sure they're staying on their A game.
Right.
Um, so um, so yeah, but it's sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's sad. For the ones who got it, some don't. But it's always the great opportunity to help that particular student, get through school, realize what they're doing, not only for themselves but for the future. For the
Right.
example they're going to set for other people that are presented before them.
Okay. So, if you saw that a student was slipping,
Hmm.
how would you approach that, and what steps would you take to help them out, help them get them
Usually,
back on the right track?
usually for something like that, I want to try to find out the whether do you remember like the 5 W's and the how.
Hmm.
I usually take that approach. I want to find out what's going on. And some students, you really have to build that trust in order for them to kind of open that door. A lot of them will not, unless you have that trust already pre-built. And that's something you have to do in the beginning, when you first get started with that student, letting them know that, while as your mentor, I'm here for you. As long as you're being transparent with me, I'll be transparent with you. Usually that's the name of the game, just having that trust. Because once you have that trust, you know how hard you can push. You'll know how hard, that you need to, if you have to go in on a particular student, to kind of to kind of unravel the onion a little bit and kind of really get the scoop on what's happening. But um, for the most part, it's a once I know the story, then
Hmm.
I can now I can start laying the track on how I can get you back on point. So is it some resources that I need, maybe get you in touch with? Is it with more of like a self-care thing? Is it a third-party resource I can recommend you to? Is it someone within the university, within student services? And once we get to that point, then now I can start laying out slow, achievable academic goals that
Okay.
will lead them back into success.
So, how important is it for a student to have a good relationship with his or her advisor?
It's everything because um, it's even from an adult, even from someone in high school. So I'll take it from the high school approach. As an incoming freshman, you really don't know a lot. You just know that you're there your freshman year, and you're there for to obviously prepare for graduation. But um, and every school is different. I mean, whether from a private school to public school to a charter school, if you if the school is able to keep those special counselors in place, those academic advisors in place, that's only going to help foster the students going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Because the more often you can meet with your advisor, the better relationship that you're going to have. They get to know you a little bit better, because believe it or not, they support you, and they may have it depends on the size of the high school. It may be might be like 2,000 kids in a high school. They may have a load of like 400 to 500.
Mm.
So, but the more often you meet with them and see them, now they can put a face with the name. It's just not this student that I'm meeting with, and I'm it's kind of filling in these whatever I'm going to throw whatever classes that I think they should be in. If you go meet with their actual advisor, it says,
Mm.
hey, I might be going through something. Can I maybe change my class for something different? Can I maybe swap with another teacher? Or I think this teacher I vibe with a little bit better than this other one. So and that's something that I had to do for high school. So that's something. There were certain teachers that she did not care for too much, but so it took for me and her to go see her counselor, and once she got that established, then she took it upon herself to go see her counselor a lot more often, and I
Okay.
didn't have to be there to do it. She
Right.
actually took the initiative to start that process, and once you kind of get the hang of that, then
Right.
we get to college. um, you're gonna have an actual academic advisor from the beginning, but once you choose your major,
Mm.
that's when you'll actually have it'll be like the dean of students over business, or the dean of students, so that then you're working within that department and whatnot. So
Okay, so you mentioned meeting with your advisor. So my question is, how often should a student meet with his or her advisor? And when you meet with them, how should they prepare for the meeting?
I think for like high school, I mean, so you're there for 4 years. I mean, as long as you're gonna be there for the 4 years, um, it's I see I think most high schools operate off the quarter system. So,
Mhm.
if it were me, and I mean, I have a son that he's um, me and his advisor, he's in the 6th grade, so I usually talk to his advisor offline, often, and she has him for class, so they have a great relationship. But I
Mhm.
would say try to meet with them often as possible. You know,
Okay.
maybe have lunch with them. Instead of going with your friends. See if they have the same lunch as you do. It might be A
Right.
lunch, B lunch, C lunch, whatever the case may be. But as often as possible, when you get to college, I would say definitely that first day of school, once you get your schedule from the registrar's office, and before you
Mhm.
make it official, definitely go see your advisor, and make sure that either he and she, you guys are both on the same page,
Right.
and able to kind of really make that great relationship between student and advisor.
Okay. Now you mentioned that in college you have an academic advisor, but then
Mhm.
when you get into your major, do you have a second advisor? So you have two, or explain that. Explain that again.
So usually, yeah. So you got your main academic advisor as an incoming freshman,
Okay.
because unless you declared, I mean, most schools will. Um, prefer that you declare right away, but you really don't have to until your sophomore year. I mean,
Okay.
because if you think about it, I mean, most programs or most majors, if it's like a business major or something like that, I mean, you got to take care of those general classes like your math, your foreign language, your um, what else, like your history, your English comp.
Mhm.
Those are things you got to do in your first 2 years of school before you have to choose your major by your fifth semester.
Okay.
Now, if it's something that's a little more specialized, like an engineer, like
Uh-huh.
somebody really like an engineering school, if engineering is going to be your deal, then pretty much you're going to have that specialized advisor from Giddy Up. So you're going to
Okay.
have them like right away. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, but you got the general advisor from the beginning. Then once you choose your major, then that's when your advisor changes hands. So they just pretty much they take whatever your student record is. They'll it's pretty much an easy pass off to the next
Okay.
advisor for that major.
Okay.
So
So when you first go in, you have a general academic advisor, but then when you
mhm,
declare your major, then your academic advisor is tailored to your major.
correct. Yeah,
Okay. I got
yeah.
it. I got
Yeah,
it.
and, that,
Okay.
and that's how some schools are opposite. Some from my experience,
Mhm.
that's what I saw. So,
Okay.
but not every university and college is the same. So, but it's always if they have questions like that, you should always go ask. Um, you can ask an academic advisor in any department, or even maybe ask a professor because some professors are actually advisors as well. So
Okay.
they'll actually work on the course
Mhm.
load.
Okay. So what should a student expect from their academic advisor?
Um, they should definitely expect, hopefully, that they're honest, sincere, that they're going to look out for their best interest,
Hmm.
and that they will, work with them, from start to finish. Um, they're, and obviously it's you definitely want them. You definitely as a student, you want your child to definitely graduate within the 4 years, and it depends on the major too. So
Hmm.
like for me, for my daughter, she's at Langston. Um, we're thinking she'll be done in 4 years, but actually she'll have to be done in five. She's a music major.
Okay.
So with the music major, she can either teach it or she can perform it.
Okay.
So because of those two options are on the table, she will have to do a demonstrated teaching by that fifth year.
Mm.
So obviously her program will go either 4.5, if not by 5 years. Um, but it's things like that though. That's something that we didn't know until it was time to do all the final paperwork, and we're meeting with an actual advisor, and and like I said, they were transparent, they were straightforward. Letting her know if this is the major you choose, that's what it's going to be.
Right.
So but when you get like, if you get like big schools, like, because you're down in Georgia, so you have, kind of like, University of Georgia system, or like Georgia Tech, or any of the schools that carry over like a 50,000 and above capacity of students.
Hmm.
Those advisors, they you're probably seeing a lot of students. I'm probably seeing
Yeah.
at least 1,000 or more, but but 9 times out of 10, a lot of those students won't go see their advisor. They're going on blind faith that their advisor is going to choose the right course load for them.
Okay.
So, and I definitely advise, every school has a resource. So, you utilize your resources. Realize what you have, because the at the end of the day, all the professors have been paid, everyone's being paid, but if you don't speak up for your education, who
Yeah.
will?
Yeah. And say that again. You got to speak up for your.
Speak up for your education. See, I got my degree. You
Yeah.
gotta get your degree. It's not mine, it's yours. So let's be clear. So but yeah, he's got, I mean, it's quiet mouths don't get fed.
Right.
Is
Right.
what I tell kids all the time. So if there's something we want to know, you got to speak up, or you know or don't. So
So, what are some ways that you can identify some of your students' strengths and weaknesses?
Um, it varies. It's so for me, because I will never, again, I'm never going to see my students in person until graduation. So
Hmm.
it's a lot of it's going to be based off of conversation that we
Hmm.
have. And so, based off their tone on the phone, if we're talking, or how they react to certain situations, you kind of pick up their strengths and weaknesses right away, because it's a little harder because you're doing this over the phone.
Yeah.
in,
Oh,
in,
yeah.
in, in person. Body language is everything. So from a small shift of the chair, or kind of, if you're rolling the eyes, or if they look at you a certain way. um, but usually, for the strengths, a lot of my students that I really like is that they are, a lot of them are fighters. They're fighting for the education. um, Even though they may not get their curriculum right away, they are, resilient. They'll go ask a professor, they'll go make an appointment. If they're having whatever challenge they're having, they will actually go apply themselves, and to make it happen.
Hmm.
For the ones who, when I identify the weaknesses, if they're a real quiet person, and they're not used to, asking for help. Some students are, they're all about, I got this, I can figure it out on my own. And when I have to peel back the layers, is, hey, there's a lot of places you got in life, but I can probably guarantee you didn't do it on your own. Someone along the way helped you, but you're not realizing that. And as your mentor, I'm helping you.
Right.
So so sometimes it's trying to identify, just like, different things that, they grew up with, for whatever reason, and it became, a little bit of a slight crutch or whatever. But yeah, it's different from an online perspective, of
Yeah.
trying to find those different strengths and weaknesses, as opposed to working with someone in person.
Yeah. If you can read body language and things of that nature when they're face to face.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of underutilized college resources. And how do you help students find out about those?
Um, let's see. It was So for me, I have a little, um within WGU, and within our team of advisors that I work with, we came up with like a little something we call like an academic toolbox. So, and this is something we send to students, once we have our very first introductory call. I says, hey, in this email recap, I'm going to send you some things that we talked about, but one of the things that we're going to discuss is an academic toolbox. So within the toolbox, I will talk about, how to connect with our student services, and this what student services will cover. I will send them, a toolbox on our, um, for our career services. So when, even though they're a current student, whether they're a current student or alumni, they have, they have an idea on what kind of jobs are out there. So
Hmm.
whether, looking at a job board, or maybe having someone look at your resume, someone giving you a mock interview, so you know how to, perform when it gets to be about that time when you're applying for a job.
Right.
Um, and then, from like, not everyone's going to be a strong writer. So
Hmm.
every school has a writing center.
Right.
You got someone that's there who can help you write it, write the paper. They're not going to write it for you. They're going to teach you how to write. And sometimes that's where students get confused. Like, I'm going to go to writing center. I was like, and so they'll meet with somebody. Can you write my paper? No, it's not it, homie. So, they teach you how to write. So, and then also, we have a math center. And, you know, math, I'm straight up and out. I mean, math was not one of my strong suits.
Hmm.
I could not stand algebra, but for whatever reason, I was a whiz when it came to applied stats.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, for whatever reason, I can identify with stats, and I always got A's in stats. When I counted college algebra, anything of that nature, no, it didn't work well. So I always had to ask for tutoring services. So and
Right.
all colleges have tutoring and whatnot. So so we offer that, and so yeah, so those some of the that we use for WGU. We call it an academic toolbox. So
Right.
it even works that way for anyone that's going to school in college,
Mm-hmm.
even for high school. Um, most students, for whatever reason, are afraid to ask for help, especially from a high school setting, even sometimes middle school. And believe it or not, someone in their class knows what they're doing, but they're afraid to ask them because they don't want to appear stupid. They don't
Right.
want to appear that they don't know. Um, and so the one thing that I will mess with students about when it comes to math, especially in middle school and high school, I'll ask them, well, I was like, let me ask you this, and let's be honest. Do you like money? Oh yeah, I love money. I said, I'll tell you what, if you don't know how to count this money, someone's going to count it for you and take
Yeah.
advantage of it. So you really have to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So and that usually kind of helps break the ice because no one wants to be robbed blindly of someone going in their pocket and not walking away with the right money. But
Right.
um, yeah, but it's just kind of helping students to let them know that there are resources out there.
Mm-hmm.
From middle school to high school to college, you got those resources from a tutor, and even if there's no tutor, um, the teachers collect a check and a salary. So, you better go talk to them, if you would want to know. If that
Right.
means you staying after school or going to see them during lunch, um, whatever the case may be. So, again, this is your education. So, you know, even though you're in high school, I mean, you're not paying for nothing unless you're at a private school.
Right.
But when you go to college, um, I tell students, make sure you get your money's worth and then some.
Right. Right. Yeah. We were talking about that before we came online that I was telling you, it's the students' education.
It is.
Not ours.
Mm-mm.
But you're right. And let's talk about how important it is for them, for students to reach out to get the help sooner than later.
Um, it is much easier for if you're struggling with a subject early on, and no matter what class it is, it's much easier to get the help now instead of you getting the help much later. Because if you're waiting much later, now you have all this information that you got to cram in real tight in order to pass. But the question is, are you passing just to pass and get done, or are you
Right.
passing it so you can know it?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
the whole purpose of you, yeah, you can pass it and move on and think that you're not going to see that information again, but 9 times out of 10 you are going to see it again. And when you see it again, it's information that you should know, because going to your next class, especially like for college,
Mm-hmm.
it's a buildup
Right.
going into the next class. So when it's like taking what it looks like English comp or math, obviously there's English comp, 100, then 101, 102. When it jumps up to the 200 level, 300 level, that's when it's, you're really getting a little deeper into the literature of English.
Right.
And then especially even like from a science aspect, there's different types of science that are out there. But once you start biology triggers into physics. Physics
Mm-hmm.
changes into um, oh, and I forgot what the next one up and above that, but every core class is going to have a build up into the next and the next. So if you work with your um, and this is where you can go back to your advisor. You say, hey, are there any tutors that I should know of, or is there anyone that can help me, with this particular class, or um, or you go see your teacher, and this is where you can develop, rapport with your teacher. I always, tell students, the smart ones are usually in the first two rows of the
Yes,
classroom,
I've heard
and,
that.
and the ones that are slacking are usually the one towards the back. But it's very rare that someone that smart is going to be in the back. I mean, most
Yeah,
students I knew and still know this very day will sit up front, and they're in the first two rows of the class.
right.
So those are ones that you want to become friends with, or at least get to know, so they can, you at least have a buddy system.
Right,
So
right. So let me ask you this. So what if the student is having problems with their academic advisor? They're not really helping them, they're not really guiding them. What steps can a student take to get help?
um, I have an issue when I was in my junior year at Wingate where my advisor, I felt that he wasn't. I mean, he was listening, but he wasn't. I don't think he was listening to what I was asking and required. So everyone has someone above them, and usually, there's it's going to be there's always like a head advisor. There's someone that's above the advisor. So every college, has an org chart on who they report to, and so me being in college, I'm definitely find out who that's going to be. So 'cause I need to talk to somebody. So when I felt that my acting advisor was listening to me, um, I went I knocked on the door to the dean for that program and says, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" And so yeah, so what's up? So I gave him the story. It's like, well, do you mind if we invite this person? Like, yeah, like call me in. Let's go. Let's get it done. So, um, and yeah, so we and after kind of explain myself a little more thoroughly, and with the dean being there, that helped because the dean was able to explain a little bit better, where the academic advisor wasn't really catching on what I was trying to portray.
Okay,
So someone always report to somebody. So from the high school, from the high school setting, if it's because you got usually three or four academic advisors that are there with you. If they're not hearing you, obviously the person you want to go see is someone that's either in charge over them, or it's going to be the vice principal.
right,
Eventually will lead to the principal. From college, like I said, you have your academic advisors, you got your dean, then a dean, and if the dean's not listening, then the person that really, it's funny, the person that really holds a lot of power at the university level and people that really forget about for whatever reason is the provost.
oh wow,
And the provost has weight.
okay,
The provost really has weight because the president is elected by the board of trustees.
okay,
Now, the president gets ousted. The person that gets that's running the university is usually 9 times in is the provost.
okay, okay,
So,
okay,
I mean, yeah, because you do have vice president with the university, but there's no vice president of. I mean, the president is there for the business, but the
right,
provost is the chief officer of academics.
okay, okay.
So
Okay. So yeah, so reach out. There's a hierarchy.
there's
And
I argue.
yeah, and if you have to go all the way up, keep going all the way up until you get some help.
Oh yeah, I mean until you feel that you are being validated,
Right.
that you're
Exactly.
being heard.
Yeah, yeah, because you're paying for your education. So
Yes,
like you said, it's totally different than high school.
it is. It
Yeah.
is.
Well, I thank you so much. We are almost out of time, but I want to ask you one more or give you this opportunity to
Hmm.
talk to the student. Right now it's graduation time, right? And you
It
have
is.
all these high schoolers graduate.
Yeah.
So before we go, I want you to give some advice to those high schoolers that are looking to go on to college. And it just, want to give you the opportunity just to give them some words of encouragement and give them some advice.
So for the ones who are graduating, again, congratulations. It's definitely been a trying year, especially for those who either had to do it virtually only. For the ones who had the hybrid approach, um, just know that you've been battle tested, and if you can make it through this, when you get to college, college should be just a tip of the hat. It should be easy. You should be able to anything that gets thrown your way, everything you were battle tested in high school, you were pretty much made for this opportunity to be successful at the next level. So I definitely encourage you to definitely, hold the line, keep after it, and press on.
Well, I thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend time with us and to share your knowledge and give everybody the inside perspective of what you know about being an effective academic advisor. I just hope in 2022 I get a chance to physically meet you. But
Amen.
I'm only a phone call away if you need me.
Always, always, definitely. You always been there. Definitely, you've been helpful from day one. So I appreciate you more than anything.
Well, thank you. And I'd like to thank our viewers for tuning in this evening to True Blue Designs Presents the Inside Perspective. We're at the end of our show, but I just wanted to say that we will see you next Wednesday, same time, same place. We're streaming live on Facebook, our Facebook channel, and on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. So make sure that you like, and share tonight's broadcast, and also go to YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can get alerts on the shows that we have coming up in the various different topics. So we are going to sign off on tonight, and we just thank you so much, and we'll see you next Wednesday.